Hello, humans. Welcome to the Harmony and Humanity podcast, where we're all about highlighting the common ground we all share, inspiring conversations that lead to real world harmony and understanding. My name is Amethyst Herrick. I'm one of your hostesses. I'm also joined by Jasmine Vine. Hello, Jasmine.
Hello, hello.
And Dr. Lino Martinez. Hello, Lino.
Lino's not here with us, but I'll
Oh,
try to
dang.
fill it. Hey, ladies, I'm so excited to get into this topic. Yeah.
There you go. We are three transgender humans combining science, spirituality, and lived experience, all with the purpose of showing that we have much more in common than what separates us. So in today's live stream, we want to talk about parents and supporting their children when we're young, because Jasmine and I had a conversation over the weekend about this. And believe me, Jasmine and I have plenty to say. We'll ask each other questions. If you're joining us live, I hope that you'll make this interactive. We'd love your questions. And if you're watching this on replay, we'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. But bear in mind, you have the power to drive this stream whichever direction you want. So let's get into the topic here. Let's first say this. I see Raven. Hello, Raven. And hello, Morgan. And hello, Zoe. And it doesn't look like we have anybody on TikTok, which, that's a bummer. But nobody commented, so. All right. Well, you know what we talked about this weekend, Jasmine, right? We were talking about... originally, we were talking about somebody... Oh, and Bobby Bamlett. Hi, Bobby. We were talking about how there are parents who certainly don't want their children to grow up to be transgender. And so what they do is try to make sure that none of us feels very good about it. Right? You experienced this.
Yeah. You know what? This is a really interesting topic for today because yesterday I had this whole comment chain with someone who claimed to be a detransitioner and was advocating for basically eradicating any gender-affirming care.
Wow.
Which was interesting because I did my usual Jasmine thing and I actually interacted with this person in a kind and compassionate way. And
Sure.
even though there were moments they called me sick in the head or yada yada, I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to get your point across. Anyway, I'll respond to the merit of the comment. And it reminded me of what we spoke about on the weekend in some ways. I wish I remember. We should have been recording. Like, for everyone listening, maybe we should do recorded ones of these because Amy and I just went into this massive sort of discussion that was so insightful. And then we ended the call like, damn it, we should have recorded that.
Right. I wish we did, but well, why was this guy though? Why was that well, first of all, why did you interact with that? If somebody was going to call you sick in the head and an alleged detransitioner. Actually, can I ask you a question really fast?
Yeah.
Why is it, does it seem typical that detransitioners are sort of antagonistic to those who maybe not even complete, but are willing to transition?
Yes. Typically. And
Why?
there's a number of reasons for that.
Let's hear.
Yes. One thing I would recommend is look at both sides of the story. Like with detransitioners, look at the people who have had a negative experience, who are very vocal about, eradicating trans healthcare, like this person the other day. And also look at people like Lucy Kattikasari, who have had a similar kind of experience, but still advocate for people being able to have access to gender-affirming care.
Yeah.
Now, this is something that I recommended that person yesterday. I was like ending the conversation pretty much. I'm like, okay, I actually agree with a number of points that you've put forward. I don't think someone should jump into getting like a surgery after finding out they were trans 30 days before.
Yeah.
don't think they should do that. That's basically what this person did. I think they said they waited 70 days and then got surgery. And they blame the medical health professionals. They blame everyone else for pressuring them to transition and everything. And I'm like, okay, got to take a little bit of that onto yourself, like a bit of that responsibility, because if you don't know yourself fully enough to know that that's 100% the right decision for you, then yeah, anyway, that was an aspect.
So I
said, go watch that interview. Go watch the interview I did with Lucy Kartikasari. The only thing that I don't agree with you on, based on what you've said in the past comment, is that, no people under 18 should be able to access gender affirming care. I said that is something that almost killed me. And I shared my story about it in my most recent YouTube video. So go watch that interview and go watch the YouTube video if you want to learn more around that. And I kind of just left it there. And then they kept going. I'm like, oh, okay. Interesting.
Of course.
But I'm like, yeah, at a certain point, it's like I've affirmed what you have said. I have given you resources to go and look at if you would like to expand your perspective. It doesn't seem like that's the case. So I am ending this conversation. Goodbye.
Yeah.
That's pretty much that.
And these were in comments on... Where were these comments?
They were on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but basically the sick in the head comment was because I was saying I do advocate for young people to be able to access puberty blockers, because I was a young person who should have been able to access puberty blockers.
Sure.
Yeah. But anyway.
Morgan does ask a good question. Morgan asks, don't you think some detransitioners might be trans people who have just been pushed or they feel this way and now they need to retreat in order to survive? And maybe they want to transition again later. And I'm curious. One of the things you said, though, Jasmine, one of the things that you repeated was that this person was within 70 days capable of receiving surgery. And I would really question that.
Oh, yeah, I do question whether it was a troll account or a genuine thing. But I scrolled back on their Instagram and I saw they had like a motorbike with a pride sticker on it 2 years ago.
Okay.
And so I kind of went, I'll give this person the benefit of the doubt. They're not posting a bunch of rubbish and there's little signs like that. So I chose to give them the benefit of the doubt in that scenario.
Yeah. It just, I think about how difficult it really is to get gender affirming care. Typically with surgery, you need at least 2 letters. Oftentimes you need at least a year on HRT. And so that's like significant. That's a big barrier. The idea that somebody could knock that out in 2 months and even get on somebody's schedule just seems questionable. But anyway.
Maybe if they have a ton of money and can do everything like privately and pay for that's
maybe. Okay. I guess yes, maybe. I guess, and I don't know how this person did it. I would wonder that though. Raven points out though, statistically, the vast majority are recloseted transgender people, and then Raven says she hasn't had negative interactions with anybody detransitioning. I've only had like one negative interaction for what it's worth, but what's weird is I can never get a detransitioner to come on a podcast and talk to me about why they did it. Nobody will do it. And I'm curious why this is. Is there a reason why? Are they ashamed but at least part of me wonders, because if you look at how do I want to put this? If you look at people making positive transgender content, they tend not to be as popular, let's say, as people who are willing to be kind of nasty. And if you detransition, you have this platform where you can go, yeah, I tried it and it was ridiculous. Those people are dumb. And maybe that's part of what we look at. I guess I don't know. I mean, I'm curious if some of these people never even transitioned, but they're jumping onto something saying, look, if I just start criticizing people, I can have a platform. So I've always wondered that as well. You know, did you give it a fair try? Did you really? Oh, dang, we just lost Jasmine, and now things are looking a bit funny. Give me 1 second. She's coming back.
Oh,
Whoops.
was that my internet?
I don't know. I think so.
Sorry.
So Morgan says she felt like she almost had to, I assume, detransition. At the beginning of her journey, so much of the world I knew changed overnight and people left. Yeah. So another statistic, by the way, is that, because I think I read as many as 30%, I'm trying to remember not 30%. The statistic was something like 6 or 7% of people didn't experience at least a little bit of a positive experience, either neutral or negative. And most of those people, I want to say it was something like 85% of the 7%. So you do the math on this. It was for social reasons. Like they had parents or something who said, ooh, no, you're not doing this. So generally it's not because of the care, it's because of the response that they got from their social environment. Not a big surprise, because, you know, there are a lot of people,
Well, you know what?
Morgan has said.
This person commenting yesterday were using massively overinflated statistics about, you know, detransition and also regret rates, and saying, you know, people who transition, you know, wider X number, like percentage of them still want to end their lives and have massive, like, you know, mental health issues and yada yada. And I thought that was really interesting because it is for social reasons for the most part.
Yeah.
Like those mental health issues, I'm like, you are a perfect example of why trans people struggle so much mentally after transition. Like me, I transitioned bloody 14 years ago now. I'm totally comfortable and confident within myself. There's no issues in regards to any of that. And that type of stuff doesn't affect me as much anymore. But in the past, oh my goodness, those types of comments consistently were really upsetting.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
Yeah. When you said
So
you are a perfect example, are you referring to me?
No, I'm referring to this commenter.
Oh gosh, okay. I was going to
like,
say,
they're a perfect example of why so many trans people still struggle with their mental health after transition.
Yeah.
Because the physicality side of it is only one side of transition.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm receiving comments on a daily saying, you're sick in the head, blah, 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 of course that's going to have an impact. I'm like, for goodness sakes.
The other thing too, I mean, with my experience on this, if you're, you know, I ended up because I didn't start until I was 52. For anybody who doesn't know me, didn't start until I was 52, and by the time I addressed a lot of my gender dysphoria, which took, you know, on the order of a year or so, but about a year in there, I had peeled back this level of this layer of gender dysphoria and said, okay, well, I'm cured, right? I'm good to go now. HOTTOGO, only trans, you know, whatever. So I thought I was good to go. Oh, I love that. HRTTOGO. There you go. Anyway, I peeled back this layer of gender dysphoria and I looked down and I went, oh, dang, now I've got 52 years of all my other mental health issues that I could never, that I never even knew how to address, that I couldn't even get to. And
Mm.
for what it's worth, I don't know statistics off the top of my head of people who people, for instance, who would have ideations after. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without TikTok getting upset at me. So if you're
Mm.
wondering why I'm tiptoeing around this, but I don't have any good statistics on that. My understanding is that the we go from about an 82% in the transgender community, about 82% of people who either strongly consider suicide or attempt it, to something more like 8%, which is still much higher than the rest of the world. Okay, still much higher, but it's an order of magnitude less. You know,
Mm.
I'm almost surprised it isn't higher than that. Sadly, but
That
sort of
actually
surprised.
surprises me. Hmm.
You're surprised too? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I think I would sort of expect it to be higher, and I think that should be an indication that I think that should be an indication that gender affirming care is that effective. That if
Mm.
if you start it and you give it a good a good go on it, then it tends to give you better, your mental health gets much better. So, because even if we
Mm.
were to say 8%, I mean, the highest rate in the world is Greenland, if I remember correctly. So I don't know why Trump needs to annex it, but which is something like
Mm.
5.5%, I think it was 0.5%. I'm trying to remember, but so it's still much worse, but much better than it was. So where am I going with this? I don't know. Where
I
were we
mean,
going?
the effectiveness of gender affirming care on mental health, because this person is saying, in the comments, that I don't want to repeat the crap, but they were basically saying half, like over
No.
half of people who go through these things, like regret and have like ideation afterwards. I'm like, okay, that's just a bit ridiculous.
Certainly wrong. Certainly wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. However, where am I going with this? Brainwaves are a little bit jagged today. Oh my gosh. Come on, brain.
Well, it's fine. We both did it.
Oh, knee replacement surgery. Okay, I've remembered
Right.
my reference here. Knee replacement surgeries, I believe, have it's around a 14 or 15% regret rate for knee
Yeah.
replacement surgeries.
Up to
And
about 40%, if you can believe that. Depending upon
yeah,
what's, because newer ones are supposedly less regret rate, but as high as
hmm,
40%. But yeah, somewhere between 14 and 40. So
yeah. But with that in mind, some of the like detransitioners that go this right wing sort of route after detransitioning, it's akin to me almost as being someone who's had like a knee replacement surgery and then regretting the knee replacement and then going around going, no one should be able to access knee replacements and mutilating their knees and blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
right.
um, just because it wasn't right for that person
Yeah.
doesn't mean that nobody else should have access to it.
Very true.
And, they're saying, oh, these numbers, yada, yada, and basically saying that I should not exist publicly.
Oof.
That's the gist. Like, I should not exist publicly
Yeah.
because sharing my euphoria, the video, just for context, was a video of me. To be fair, I was pressing on my downstairs area because I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this and it doesn't hurt.
It was that video. Okay.
Oh my goodness. But I was sharing the joy that I was experiencing as a part of that. I was like, oh my gosh, it's healed enough now that I can do that. I can wear like leggings and I can
Yeah.
go, walking around and it doesn't stick out. I'm like so freaking happy with it. So much more than the last time we spoke about it. I mean, because I don't know, I've just reached the level of healing where I'm like, yay, awesome.
Right.
But anyway, it was commenting on that. And the gist that I got was sharing my joy in getting gender affirming surgery is immoral because I'm telling kids that it's okay to do that.
Sure. Sure.
And because so many people regret the bloody things,
Of
then that's an
course.
immoral thing to do. And I
Yeah.
basically just came back and said, hey, I'm sharing my own personal experience. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has been extremely affirming for me.
Yeah.
And it's something that is very, very helpful for my mental health. I feel great after it. So that's my experience. I'm sorry that you did not have that experience. And I'm sorry that you don't feel like you got the care that you needed at the time to make an informed decision about your own body. However, let's not project that on the people that do benefit from these things.
Right. Right.
Because it's just projectile vomiting all the crap on other people.
Right. Right. Can,
And I'm like, oh gosh. One of the comments I made was that I transitioned, socially like 14 years ago now, and medically 12 years ago. And that was apparently condoning gender affirming care for young people, which is what we're talking about today. That's why I'm kind of leading into that. Condoning gender affirming care for young people, and that's immoral and yada yada. Yeah. I want to catch up on the comments, sorry.
okay.
Mental health
There
was
was.
brightened when I cracked. I could actually see a future for myself. I could be happy.
Yeah.
Yes. And that is the same for myself. That is the same for so many people. I have not met someone in person who has felt that their mental health has been worse after transitioning.
I have not met anybody either. I mean, I think that's an interesting.
If they're actually trans, like I'm going to put that little caveat there, because if they're not, then ideally they would pick that up before going through any sort of changes.
Right. Oh, sure. Sure.
There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. We can put safeguards in place, but there's going to be that 1% that slip through that aren't going to be affirmed by it. And that's okay. That's a fact of life. But yeah.
Can I move this in a slightly different direction? Because
yeah.
Because I was talking with my wife this morning about it's regret rates to a certain extent, and she brought up football. Okay, so many, and sorry, I mean American football. So sorry, Jasmine. I don't even have a word for it. Yeah, no, not soccer. No, I mean like football, where you put on the big old shoulder pads and an oblate spheroid. What is it? Spheroid oblate? Who knows?
What?
I don't even know. This is something they do here in the United States. I've never seen it. So,
what is football in America?
Maybe look it up. Yeah, but the thing
you
is,
don't have like a football shaped thing, like the what?
It's not a ball that you kick with your foot. You actually put it in your hands and run with it. I don't know. It's
That's
freedom.
not football.
No,
you just said put it in your hands and run with it.
Yes. Well, anyway. So.
Is it like rugby?
Yeah, a bit like rugby. All right.
Oh, okay.
So here's the point.
Anyway,
there are probably I don't know the statistics, but I'm willing to bet that most boys these days get put into football. In the U.S. Sorry, get put into American football in the U.S. Like I have seen pee-wee football at the park where I used to go running, and these are kids who are like 4 years old, maybe 4, maybe 5. The point, and it's like it's not really a game, right? Everybody runs in different directions, and everybody's like, "No, Jimmy, go back, Jimmy." Oh well, yeah. But the point is that football itself, the sport of football, has so many injuries, so many broken bones, contusions, trauma. And then my wife sent me this thing. Apparently professional football players, and maybe it's not even just professional football players, have the tendency ultimately to get chronic traumatic encephalitis. So chronic traumatic encephalitis means your brain hits the side of your
Oh.
brain pan, your cranium there. It hits the inside of your cranium enough that you get this chronic encephalitis, which is a swelling. And what that will do is make your brain go, oh, dang, if we're swelling, we'd better start pulling things apart. And so you start to lose like cognitive function. Well, I think I'll stop there. You start to lose some cognitive function as a result. So think about this, okay? So now you've got kids, pee-wee, football, kids in high school, whatever it is. You have people who are getting injured all over the place. You might end up to the point where you have chronic traumatic encephalitis and end up committing crimes, because this is part of the whole thing. There was a study about it and loss of cognitive function. But like, we're cool with this. Almost every kid, almost every boy gets stuck into some football team. And we're cool with the idea that, well, maybe at some point my kid is going to end up with so many concussions that he doesn't know where he is and ends up like shivving somebody, right? Like, we're cool with that. But the idea that this kid might put on a skirt, over my dead body, hell no. I'm okay with my kid shivving somebody and ending up in jail for the rest of his life, but putting on a skirt, no way. What a level of hypocrisy that we could claim that the danger of the thing means that we should not do it. Because here's the point. If the danger of the activity were any measure of its how fit it is for people to do, football is right out. Way the hell out. Nobody should be doing this. Any thoughts?
Or things like boxing and that kind of stuff.
Right. Things like that. Things where your head gets jostled around a lot. There'd be bad ideas. But we're okay with those. Why are we okay with that? But we're not okay with the idea that you have to call your kid a different name, use different pronouns. When we look at puberty blockers, there's a lot of studies that have been done to indicate that puberty blockers don't end up harming the child, but certainly address gender dysphoria. But those are bad. Those we're not supposed to do. Football is cool. Are you just like, listen, I don't know, football, whatever. You're talking out of your ear.
Oh, I don't know. It's a sport with a ball and there's goals and you run around and...
You jump on people. You have to push them down and knock them over, I think. Push them down, knock them over, jump on top of them. You might have to stomp them in the head. I think that's part of it.
What?
Yeah. Stomping them in the head. There was I think you have to boot them in the behind. There's also
all right. I think we should all get together. We should all get together and protest this and be like, this is immoral, making our kids play football.
Yes. Right?
I think we should do that.
Anytime the Super Bowl is on, we should go, I cannot believe it. This is like drag queens at the library, except we're watching guys in big shoulder pads jumping on each other, getting chronic traumatic encephalitis, and calling this okay. We need to stop this kind of crap.
You're all sick in the head. This is madness.
You're sick in the head. You are teaching our children
or at least
horrible
you will
things.
be with your chronic encephalitis.
Right. And we shouldn't laugh about this. It is absolutely a bummer. It is absolutely a bummer that these people get injured. The thing is that we're cool with that. We're cool with actual injury. In fact, we recommend it. Right? Go be a football player. But things that we know are safe, that's no good. We don't want to do that kind of crap. So
See, that is very, very interesting. Because when you put it into context with other things like that and what we know about those things, it highlights more than ever one thing, and that is that the issue is not with the potential harm of the thing.
Right.
So where does the issue actually lie? I think many of us already kind of know where the issue actually lies, but nobody admits to that.
Oh, right. No, it comes down to ethics. Because this was the other thing my wife and I were talking about. If if you bring up statistics, because, the person that you had comments from, and I had somebody
Mm.
over the weekend who had comments for me that ended up saying, leave children out of gender ideology or something like leave the children out of gender
Mm.
ideology. If you say, there, like statistically, there aren't a lot. And statistically, science shows that these people are okay, then these people will just switch tactics. And they go, well, yeah, but, God said, or there
Mm.
is no statistic, there's no piece of science, there's no way to get to a point where you have, as I was mentioning to you before, an ethically unassailable point.
Yes. Yeah.
There you go. You like that one. And because so you can't win. When somebody just goes, yeah, I don't want you to do it, I just wish they'd admit, I don't want you to do it. Like, just tell me you don't want me to do it. There's like, by you're not helping me by trying to like trying to give me different false reasons not to do something. Just tell me you don't want to do it, because if I can knock down every single pin that you've got on the bowling alley and you go, no, not good enough, just tell me you don't want me to do it. You're
Mm.
not doing this for my sake, you're doing it for your sake. It is you who don't want me to do this. Just tell me that. Just be honest with me, be honest with yourself. It's not about science, it's not about medicine, it's not about statistics. It has to do with, you just don't like it, period.
Okay.
My
I
rant's
have a
over.
bunch to say on that because, yes, I think it comes down to that. Like when you knock down all those pins, it literally comes down to A, I don't believe you exist, or B, I don't believe you should exist, or I don't
Right.
want you to exist.
Right.
And for most people, I don't think they've come to the realization of that. Like they don't realize that that's the deeper layer of it. And so they try to affirm their belief with external things. It's like, oh no, it's not because I want a whole subset of people to not exist. It's because of this. Oh no, it's not that I want to eradicate all transgender people. It's because of this medical thing.
Right.
And we know that it's not. We know that it's not about that.
Mm-hmm.
But people feel a lot more comfortable when they can point to external ethical things to confirm their kind of shitty belief, to be honest.
Right.
They
Right.
feel a lot more comfortable when they can point to other things.
Of course.
And when those other things don't even exist, we'll make them up. Because
Yes.
no one wants to confront the idea that what they believe may actually be a really crappy thing. And they don't want to feel like they're a bad person. They don't want
Right.
to feel like they don't, yada, yada. They want to feel like they're a good person. And so leave kids out of it. Oh, but what about me, who's now almost 27 and I was a trans kid, and here's my experience? Well, I, la, 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 groomer.
Right.
Like, okay. It doesn't make sense. But we know it doesn't make sense. Gosh, there's more that I wanted to say. It was based on another thing you said, but I should be writing things down. I'm like, something that Zoe said to me a little while ago from the chat. It was like, sometimes she feels like catching thoughts is like trying to catch a train with her teeth. And I'm like, that?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good
I
one.
like that analogy.
Can I follow up on something that you said while you're considering? Because when the people who are bringing this up, the people who say, okay, well, I'm look at these statistics, look at the possibility you'll end up harmed. The way they put it is always, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to this. I mean, almost invariably, these people are saying it is ethically, morally wrong to cause somebody pain. And that's why you shouldn't do these things, because statistically you'll end up in pain. And I guess where I'm going to go with this is to say that when you can also point to a statistic that says that 8 out of 10 transgender people experienced so much pain before gender affirming care that they're willing to end it all. Like,
Mm.
they much prefer these people who are advocating and saying, look, I just don't want you to be in pain. I'm trying to take care of you. So
Mhm.
instead of you being in pain, what I want you to do is end up suicidal. I want you to be in complete physical pain. That's going to be terrible. So I want you to be in complete emotional pain for the rest of your life with absolutely no chance of it going away.
Mm.
And so once again, I'm going to say that is hypocrisy. They're not looking to
Yeah.
save us from pain. Once again, all they care about is that people do what they want them to do. It's not about me.
Mm.
It's not about you. It's about them.
I want to add a caveat to that,
Okay.
because yes, it is about them. But for me, some of the wording there, like I'm really cautious of not, what's the word? Because for them, I do believe people spreading that kind of stuff have a positive intention. Like they genuinely do believe
Oh,
that
yeah.
they're in that to support, or, oh, I just want to help you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I have to believe that they genuinely believe that.
Yeah. I
But
don't
it's
disagree.
misguided.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Mm. It is
The,
absolutely misguided.
yeah,
Mm. What were you
I
gonna say?
agree with you. I think it it mostly comes it mostly comes from a positive place where somebody's going to say, look, I truly do care about you and I don't want you to suffer.
Mm.
The point I guess I would go to with that is to say that if you don't want somebody to suffer, then ask what the suffering is.
Mm.
It's it is misguided, if nothing else. It's misguided to say you that it's misguided to assume that what you believe is necessarily going to be painless for the other person. So
Yeah. Now, coming back to the whole kids side of things, there was a conversation that we had on the weekend that ethically unassailable side of things. Where did
right.
that come from? Because I swear that was a deeper conversation.
That's a good
Oh,
question.
oh, I'm remembering.
Okay.
We were talking about how gender is something that is in part psychological. It's something
Yeah.
that is true to only yourself. You can't say your, your favorite color is orange and have that be true.
What?
So we have to trust that there's a certain inner knowledge that
Yeah.
something is true for that person. I
Yeah.
think that's where that conversation started, was we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
that. And then how did the ethically unassailable thing come into that?
So where I come up with the with ethically unassailable is originally I was talking about it that we want to use some form of science to make an
Right.
argument, and I think it's from both sides, okay? Because I don't if you if you have somebody who says, well, my God doesn't want you to transition, somebody can go, okay, whoop-de shit. Like, I'm going to just, what a useless
Mm.
argument that was. I don't care about your God. I'm not a Christian or I'm not whatever. But if you go, well, 9 out of 10 people detransition and then they hate that, it sounds like science and it appears ethically unassailable because this doesn't have to do with
Mm.
ethics. So if you were to go, you just don't want me to, they can go, no, I'm pointing to a statistic. I just don't want you to hurt. So
Mm.
ethically unassailable, I think, comes from both points because I think the queer community does a whole lot. Just to go off on another small tangent, I've watched over pretty much my whole life, having come from genetics, at least at one point, people go, well, look, we found the queer gene. We found the gay gene. I
Mm.
remember the gay gene came up, and then there was the lesbian gene, and now we see the transgender gene, and then we look at brain structure or hormonal balance or a lot of biochemical, biological type things that we want to be able to point to and say, see, it's science. It's not me per se, it's science. And that takes ethics out of it altogether. If somebody says it's wrong for you to transition gender, and you can go, it's not that it's wrong, it's just science. So it works both directions,
And
you
that's
know.
what
So
people try to point to consistently. That's where this whole facts over feelings thing has come out, because people are trying to say that it is an ethically unassailable thing to say that trans people yada yada yada.
yeah.
So,
And I
which
guess
is interesting.
what I love about that, and this is something, gosh, I think I was talking to you about this earlier, Raven. I'm trying to remember, but this is why I feel that the way you make these arguments is with demonstration. So rather than saying, well, here's some science, we think it's a gene, we think it's this, we think it's whatever, I think it's much more important to be able to, it's much more important to demonstrate like similar thought patterns. You know, you said about the color orange, right? To say that, you know, what's your favorite vegetable is my stupid canonical example there. And people go, well, vegetables isn't the same as like getting surgery. And you go, sure, but the point is that you have no reason for knowing. You have no reason for believing. You have no reason for feeling that broccoli is that good. George Bush didn't like broccoli, so why should you? So I think that's a demonstration. I think that rather than going from, well, we think we found a queer gene, we think we found, because there are bajillions of exceptions. This is the problem. You know, we understand much of this stuff so poorly that when you look at genetics or when you look at brain structure, in some ways we don't know if we're looking at cause or effect, right? Because gene expression can be changed through experience. Brain structure we know will change through experience. Even hormonal balance, neurochemistry, biochemistry can change through empirical experience, physical experience, I'm trying to say there. So anyway, where I'm trying to go here is if you can demonstrate to somebody, listen, you have no reason to believe this and yet you do, but you won't believe that I could possibly have a similar belief. You know, because the best thing is that genetics, brain structure, biochemistry, all of this doesn't validate the cisgender or heterosexual experience either. It's a logical fallacy to say that, well, there's a lot more of them, therefore it validates, that one is valid. That's a logical fallacy. In fact, it's bandwagon is technically what it is, as a logical fallacy, I mean. So if we cannot prove the cisgender heterosexual experience, why would we think we need to prove the transgender or homosexual experience either? So anyway, ethically unassailable. That's where all this comes from. It's that ultimately you want to take ethics out of it altogether and be able to demonstrate a similar thought process or identity process in everybody, so that you really can't. So that rather than being scientific, ethically unassailable from a scientific standpoint, it's ethically unassailable from a human standpoint. These are just the way humans are. We can prove, we can demonstrate it. So, was that too much? That was like a 6-minute rant there. I think it was about 6 minutes.
No, it's good. It's good.
Where was I going? I don't know.
Of thoughts, because yeah, without knowing how heterosexuality ideology I'm just kidding with that word, but
right,
without having that understanding, there's no control group.
right,
You
right.
can't have valid science without that.
No.
And because we don't know which is cause and which is effect, it's very, very, very difficult to isolate some sort of gene that's a particular cause of blah blah blah.
Yeah.
because of how genes can be altered through, like the expression of the genes can be altered through different experiences and yada yada. This is something we were talking about the other day, about how I think I said for them to have an accurate understanding of that, or at least a more accurate understanding, we would need to study people from infancy. So, like,
Yeah.
study their brain from infancy
Yeah.
and take into account what experiences they've had and what changes in their brain structure based on blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then how do they identify at the end of the
Right.
day?
And
We
just
don't
to
have that information.
no. And to make it worse, really we'd have to go about week 10 of after zygote fertilization, because brain
Well, there
structure
you go.
starts to form at about 10 weeks. And then I'm trying to remember what it was, about 12 weeks, I think, that genital formation occurs. So there's a lot, I think brain starts about 8 weeks. And then it's, you start getting expression of the SRY gene about 10 weeks, which could affect brain development and obviously genital development. But yeah, you really have to go in the womb pretty much
Yeah.
from the point where you don't even know you're pregnant. So I
Yeah.
love this comment from Zoe, by the way, which says it almost feels like, quote, only my beliefs can be true. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's really what it is. And the thing is, somebody sent me a comment that said, well, what that means, if your theory of gender means that that gender really can't be categorized, that there are 8 billion different kinds of gender identity, because there are 8 billion people on the planet. Sorry for that logical jump there. And I was like, yeah, yes. Because each of us has a different identity. I mean, why would that be a surprise that if we have 8 billion different people, that's 8 billion different ways of expressing the human experience? It frightens, like, Western people. They, oh, wait a minute, 8 billion. I need to have a small box. You're giving me a very large amorphous mass. Can't do anything with this. I certainly can't discriminate against anybody with this. What am I going to do?
Yeah. They're humans with their categorizations. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. Ooh, here's an awesome question by Morgan. Can I ask this really fast? Okay. So Morgan asks, how do you think the brain changes as you go through a second puberty from HRT? I'm going to say flat out, I don't know. What's fascinating to me, though, is that as we've been having this conversation, I saw a little pop-up of an email with somebody who was a neuroscientist, a cognitive scientist, who emailed me, and I'm not sure what she was asking about, but she reached out to me, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what, here we are talking about it. We have observed that if you damage the brain, it can reroute certain things. And like if you damage, let's say, centers for sight, well, it's a bad one because that's really deep inside. I'm trying to think of something on the outside, but if you damage one of those centers, it may take a while, but your brain, you can relearn how to do these things. And our understanding that it should be right here now becomes like right there, and we go, yeah, I don't know, like backups? I don't know. How did that happen? We don't know. So I bring any of this up to say that neuroplasticity is really, I mean, to me, a fascinating topic, because our brains change with experience. And we have far fewer neurons as adults than we did as infants. We actually get rid of a ton of neurons. We don't grow new ones, they grow bigger. But we actually get rid of them, because what you do is, supposedly, you have a blank slate that sooner or later you start peeling away pieces of the blank slate until you have just enough. This is my experience here. I used to have, blank slate like this. Ooh, it's not like it. Ooh, I like that. I have blank slate, but this is my adult experience. So I've just chipped away at these until all the slate's now on the floor, and you go, I need a dustpan.
Hmm.
So let me go back to Morgan's question. How do I think? I couldn't tell you, but there are suggestions that the brain structure comes from certain patterns of thought. And so you will see people who were brought up, as, assigned female at birth and brought up that way, and people who were assigned male at birth but are transgender who have similar brain structures. And we could certainly just say, well, that's because they think the same way. They have a similar identity. They have a feminine identity. They have the same experience in society. So wouldn't it make sense that these two look the same? I have seen people say, well, this is evidence that you grow a brain structure and then you're feminine. And it's like, this is where we get to your point, Jasmine, that we'd have to, for a control group, basically we need somebody who's experienced nothing. Right? You put them in a sensory deprivation chamber their whole life. And there are ethical concerns about some of these, control groups. So
Yeah.
I don't think that answered anything, Morgan. I'm sorry, but I don't know if it's an answerable question.
Oh gosh. That's an ethically challenged joke. Something about Tronald Dump. Perhaps he would. Gosh, find that to be okay. Right. Something you mentioned just before. This is total a side thing.
Sure.
But have you heard about the studies that were done where I think it's studies around neuroplasticity, where if people put on a pair of glasses that flips their vision upside down and they wear that for, I think, 8 days, then they start to feel completely normal. They're like, yep, this is how the world looks, yada, yada. And then when they take them off, it feels like they're seeing the world upside down again.
Yeah.
Like without wearing them. And it takes them a decent amount of time to readjust. That's neuroplasticity. That's our brain's ability to go, oh, this thing has shifted. We're going to shift the little wiring bits up in here and shift that around so that you can function normally.
Yeah.
I noticed that when I flipped my camera, because I used to have my camera reversed all the time. And when I got this banner thingamajiggy, previously I'd be going like this. I'd be going like this banner, like, oh, wait, no, that's the wrong side. It took me a while to adjust to that because I would lift this hand and I'd expect to see it on the screen over here.
Yes, right.
It felt really freaking weird. But it's that same kind of concept. Eventually, we start to become used to that. And I was like, if I wanted to point at that thing up there, I can point to it relatively easily. Whereas before, I wouldn't have been able to.
You know,
just a little side point on neuroplasticity.
It's a cool point, and the reason it's a cool point. So I've had I'm going to everybody here knows that I've had some mental health troubles throughout my life. One of those troubles was sort of this persistent. I'm going to call it a dissociative state. So I have a persistent dissociative state where I was able to do things, but my perception was different. Like literally the perception, where if I were in this state, I could see, but it was like a little out of focus or funky in focus. I don't have a good way of describing this. When I was traveling some months ago, I fell asleep with contact lenses in, and I woke up and I was on the way to the airport. Okay, as I was flying back home from New York, and I went, oh my gosh, I can't believe I can see anything. I haven't put my glasses on. Thinking I'm going to wear glasses, right, for the rest of this trip home. I put my glasses on. So now I'm wearing both glasses and contact lenses. And I went all the way through the airport, went through TSA, and TSA gave me a big pat down, which was, a bit invasive. I got to my gate. I found my seat. I sat down. I was there, in the plane. I got off the plane, got my luggage, got it into my car, went to and drove 70 miles. Hang on, let me see. It's sort of like American football. 120 kilometers, whatever. And got home, and then was like, I took my glasses off and went, wow, I'm still seeing really well. That's weird. And went, oh God. But the thing was that I felt like I was looking around going, oh, I know I'm upset. I'm just in this semi-dissociative state. My brain was fine with it. My brain was like, yeah, you're cool. You're going to make it through this. Okay. This strange perception is just fine. So I drove for an hour and 20 minutes, to to get home. I went to a restaurant, ate food, never noticed this. So anyway, you might just go, Amy, you really don't want to tell this story, particularly not in public, because you look like a fool doing this. But where I'm going with this is to say that, yeah, I think I had enough experiences where my perception was kind of strange, fisheye sort of strange, that when I had a fisheye perception, I just went, yeah, that's fine. I was cool with it. I didn't, because I really should have gone, wait a minute. Oh, I don't need these. But I didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Should I have told that story? Shouldn't have told that story, huh?
Oh, why not? I mean, to me, it's kind of akin to being on the phone. I'm pretty sure I've done this on a call with you, like on a video call. I'm like, oh, I saw this thing. I'm like, hold on, where's my phone?
Right. You're
I'm
holding
not crazy.
it. No, it's in your hand. No, Jasmine.
Yeah.
No, it's in. Never mind.
Goodness me.
Right.
Yeah, what's akin to that sort of thing?
Yeah.
But I want to circle back to, because somehow we've spoken for 56 minutes already.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
I can't believe that, but
There was a part of that conversation, you were talking about our own perception of our gender and letting kids experiment with things. I saw a comment a little while ago from a mother who was commenting on some sort of post about like, oh, when I was 3, I didn't know this from this and blah, blah, blah. How am I supposed to know my gender? And you made the comment that gender identity is formed quite early on. Like, what did you say about that?
there are studies with that infants can tell the difference between men and women. At the very least, can tell the difference. And maybe you go, well, of course, you're going to recognize the mother because the mother's breastfeeding you. But they can have somebody come in. They can have another woman come in, and the infant will respond to that other woman similar to how they would to the mother. So infants can distinguish men from women at the very least. Other studies show that we can perceive at least our own gender by about 2 years old, max. That we perceive our own gender by then, because we're starting to perceive. Really, the word for it is identity. We're starting to perceive that we are different from the crib, from this mug, from your mom, from your dad. We're different from everything else. That we are separate from everything else. So, was that everything that I had said or that I mentioned? Or
yeah, around that. And then, this comment that I spoke about was this mother saying that her daughter, when she was 3 years old, was insistent that she was a boy. She was like, I'm actually a boy. I want to transition. I want to wear clothes more like my brothers. I want to yada, yada, yada.
yeah,
And the way she described it sounded very similar to like a typical trans experience.
yeah,
And she said for her daughter, that wasn't the case. Like, she wasn't accepting. She didn't say like, oh yeah, okay, like let's do blah blah blah. And she was basically saying that's what we should do. We shouldn't accept that they know what they're talking about. And this mother found out years later that her daughter was convinced by her two older brothers that she was actually a boy. Like, they gaslit the hell out of her basically and said, Mum won't tell you, but you are actually a boy, and she makes you, like, be like you're a girl, yada yada. Like, they told her that.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was saying that basically she was in the right to not affirm her child when they were saying that because of that. Now, I want to know your thoughts, because that laugh is interesting. I can tell you have thoughts.
I think the only thing that I want to say on that is that children are very guileless, and I don't know that you could gaslight.
Just define that word for me.
Oh,
What is
sure. Um, Guileless meaning that they when you're young, when you're pretty young, you don't really want to try to trick people into things. I mean, I think children love to play games, but I think they when they play games, they're not necessarily trying to like trick you into believing something. And so, like, I wonder, like, I don't know how much older these two brothers were, but I would kind of like I would question, were they old enough that they'd want to trick their little sister into doing this? And then, while I understand that children are impressionable, I think there's still enough understanding of identity and this guilelessness that the daughter would also be like, I have no reason to try to be what I'm not. Maybe honest is a great way of saying guileless. Not exactly, but
How do you spell guileless? I'm like, I've not heard.
Guileless. So without a
Wait, what?
guile.
G-U-I?
What? Yeah.
G-U-I?
Guileless. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Guileless.
Well, there you go. That can be another one for my grammarian.
There you go. Zoe's gonna write it down too, right? So, but
Yes, yes.
we're not trying to trick the world is the thing. I think we're trying to learn from the world, and learning from the world, you have to be honest with it. You have to engage with it in an authentic and an honest way, and so I would find it hard to believe that you could trick a child into that. I don't, because the big question is, did the girl persist in having these thoughts? How did the mother never know that, like, these brothers were gaslighting the daughter? I wonder if she talked to the brothers, and the brothers were like, yeah, we used to tell her, sure, you're totally a boy. They were affirming her as opposed to gaslighting her. I don't know. I have no idea. But it's that's all I'll say. I think I'll leave it at that. I don't know. It's another story that makes me go, really? In 70 days you went from, like, beginning gender transition to having received surgery? So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of factors that are unknown with
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
which I think is the important thing to point out with any of these types of discussions, is that we don't know everything. We're not all freaking knowing beings.
Right.
I have
Right.
no idea whether that comment was some bloody random, ridiculous thing or whatever. But when I read it, I actually did think, okay, maybe that was potentially the case, that she could be gaslit into believing that she was actually a boy. Like, I don't know, depending on how elaborate the person's thing was. Because I also know that when we hear something over and over and over, that we can start to internalize it and start to
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. I've definitely had that experience with, like,
Yes.
I'm a freak. Like, oh, I've heard that so many times now that I believe that I am. Now, despite that, though, there needed to be, like, from my perspective, there needed to be a discussion with the kid and say, why do you believe this? Like, where's this coming from? When did
Yeah.
this first come up? Yada, yada. And if you actually have an open, honest relationship with your bloody child, you should be able to have some dialogue there that will tell you, is this actually something that is a real thing for them?
Yeah.
Or does it come from somewhere else?
Right. Right.
Because if it came from the brothers playing a trick on her or whatever, then I'm pretty sure the mother should be able to find that out.
It would seem like it. It would seem like it. And
Mm.
yeah, it was, I don't know. I'm a little suspicious of this. Well, I can prove to you that the gender stuff is wrong because look, this happened, this weird thing happened with my kid. I kind of go, okay. I mean, okay.
Mm.
I would love to talk to the
The
girl.
big thing
Love
with
to hear
that
that.
is, does that mean that we shouldn't let kids explore their gender?
Right.
That's the big talking point here, because that's what people say. If we encourage someone, it's literally the title of the bloody thing. Should parents encourage transgender children?
Right.
Should we affirm what they're telling us? Should we encourage what they're presenting? Yada yada. And for a lot of parents that are, transphobic, or they haven't been exposed to things like that, then they really discourage it. Like, absolutely not. You're a girl, not a boy, blah, 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 blah. And they'll have that kind of
Right.
thing. And it's under the guise of let kids be kids. Let kids be kids. And you brought up an interesting point the other day when we're talking about this, is that when we don't encourage kids to explore the world, to explore their own identity and all of that, it's not even just gendered, their own identity in general.
Right.
It's like you could grow up in a household where everyone's an artist, and then your kid decides they want to study chemistry. And you're like, absolutely not. We're not scientists here, we're artists. It's
Yes.
like,
Right.
you could do that as well. To me, it's very much the same thing. They're not going and receiving gender affirming care. They're not like blah blah blah. They're exploring their identity. And guess what? If they're not trans, they're going to go, I tried wearing a backwards cap and shorts for this amount of time, and it doesn't really sit with me. I think I want to wear this now.
Yeah.
And that's fine. No harm done. Now they have a
Right.
deeper understanding of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So it doesn't, in my view, it does not promote confusion to enable kids to explore their identity.
Right.
It actually promotes a greater level of self-awareness, of self-acceptance, and understanding of their identity, which is a very positive thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You know, I want to recognize one comment here before I respond to that. Because Raven says, even if they were trying to trick, so Raven's saying him. So we'll talk about the possible transgender boy. If they were trying to trick him, they probably saw him respond positively and then could have been supportive to that. So yeah, if it could be reinforcement, no doubt. And Jasmine, you brought up the idea that if you hear something often enough, it's probable you'll start to believe it, which is kind of how gaslighting works. But
well, that's negative reinforcement. What Raven's talking about there seems to be more about positive reinforcement. Whereas, that's two potential scenarios. There's shit tons of scenarios that we're aware of, and a shit ton that we aren't aware of.
Right. To return to the idea that that the children need to be able to explore identity. I think it's critical, and it's not just because I'm transgender and I felt pain when I was a kid, but I mean, like my parents, there are many other instances of this. You brought up a scientist in an artsy family, but I've also seen, I've seen the opposite. Where you have two parents who are doctors or something, they're like that, and they're like, you're not going to be a sculptor, you're going to go be a surgeon, cut it out. And even if they don't,
no, Mom, I'm a musician, it's not a phase.
Right. But I've seen so many parents who want to express themselves through their children,
Yeah, yeah.
where they go, I never got the chance to do ballet, so I'm going to stick you in ballet. And you go, but I hate ballet. And I don't care.
Mhm,
You're going to do ballet because I want you to do ballet. And I
mhm.
think it's a similar thing where you have harmed your child for your sake. And I think it's deplorable. I guess I'll just end on that.
Mm.
It's deplorable. Why would you do that to your kid? Ask your kid, do you want to do ballet? No? Okay. We'll get you out. Take off the slippers now.
Oh, this brings up a really important point, is that what is affirming for one person is disaffirming to another.
Yeah,
What feels positive for one is negative for another.
right.
And parents will often push their own idea of what's positive and what's
Yeah,
negative onto their kid,
right.
because with positive intentions, I think it's to help them, take the shortcut, but there is no shortcut to understanding your identity.
No,
That's the thing. We as humans are very complex creatures. We don't have user manuals. Like, we
right.
need to explore. So I'm thinking of my partner here, actually, because my partner's mum put them through a whole bunch of different things to explore. Like, okay, try out ballet. They tried that. They tried tap dance. They tried martial arts. They're like literally just little stints in various different things like that.
Yeah,
And I think that's a really positive kind of thing to promote, is to get people to try out different things, because only they know what sits with them. But
right.
if they are put in ballet and that's the only thing that exists, and they maybe would really click more with martial arts, then why should we shun martial arts and go, oh my gosh, that doesn't exist? We should just, it's deplorable. We shouldn't even acknowledge its existence. And then this kid's in ballet, like, this kind of sucks. I don't like this.
Right.
Because what they're advocating for is actually confusion.
Yeah, right.
They're
Right.
actually advocating for confusion by
Mm-hmm.
disallowing their child from exploring.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only reason that a kid could become confused by a trans person existing is if they are shunned from it. They're told the trans person doesn't actually exist. That's the only freaking thing that's
Right.
confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah, agreed. Agreed. I agree with you.
Mm.
Should we end on that note?
I don't know. That doesn't feel like the strongest note to end on.
Well,
It's so hard to even let ourselves
yeah, thank you.
yeah, that word, Morgan. Transgenderism at first, given society and family pressures.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said before, I think the first step in gender transition is accepting that you are transgender.
Mm. And you know what? This is the thought that I want to end on.
Okay.
I spoke about Lisa Tikasari a little bit before, the detrans woman that I interviewed on my podcast.
Yeah.
Something that she said was that after transitioning and then realizing that that wasn't for her and then transitioning back, she feels so much more understanding of herself. She
Right.
feels so much more clarity in her identity. And she does not regret that decision to transition and transition back. She's like, yeah, okay, it's made a couple of things harder. Like I had a double mastectomy and now I'm whatever. But all in all, she viewed it as a very positive
Mm.
experience for her own self-development and the development of her identity.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between someone who, how do I want to word this in a way that isn't shady?
Not going to be easy.
Oh gosh, help me out here. Yeah.
Well, no, it's not going to be easy. Yeah, I mean, did you give it a good try? I mean, I'm not sure where all you're going to
Oh,
go
I
with
thought you
this.
said you could make it easier.
Oh, no, 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 no. It will not
Well,
be
the
easy to
difference
say that. Yeah.
between The difference between people who detransition and go down the right wing rabbit hole and
Yeah.
advocate for nobody else being able to transition.
Right.
Lucy was very different in that, she had pretty much the same experience to some of the, like Chloe Cole, for example. She's like, my experience was pretty much the exact same as Chloe Cole's, except she's going around getting paid for being expert witnesses in court cases against
Right.
gender affirming care.
Right. Right.
And I'm advocating for people to have freedom of choice.
Yes.
To be able to make those mistakes, if it is a mistake for them, to be able to explore, to be able to understand themselves on a deeper level.
Right.
She's like, I'm advocating for this. And if I were to do what Chloe Cole's doing and say, oh, it's all blah, 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 and advocate against gender affirming care, she was like, I'd be put on every bloody news station. I'd be called up to appear in courts all the time.
Yes.
I'd be the poster child for this, that, and the other. But because she doesn't do that, her content is ignored by those same people.
Sure. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Which links it back to what you were saying in the beginning, where it's like negative coverage like that. If you're talking about things like that, the people who want to exploit that idea will boost you up. If you're talking about things in a positive light and advocating for kindness and compassion and yada yada, it's like, it's just a whisper in the background.
Right. Can I sum up? Can I sum up sort of how you put that? Because I think the way I would think about that at this point anyway, the way I would think about that is that when we're exploring identity, of which gender is a part, and I don't care what it is in our identity we're exploring, but as we explore identity, there are no mistakes capable of being made, because all we do is learn about ourselves, which is the point of exploring identity, isn't it? Why else would you do this? So yeah, I mean, I think that at least in Western society, we go, oh, that was a setback or something. Now you set back a year. Oh my gosh, how are you going to recover from that? You only have 84 years left of your life. How are you going to? So we want to look at things that don't work out as mistakes, and mistakes are necessarily wrong. And there was something I read recently. I wish I could remember where I saw it, but it was on a YouTube comment, and I wish I could remember who it was. I want to say it's Nijo, whom I don't see here, but she mentioned that she's failed all the time, and that was great because she knows so much more about herself. Here are all the things I don't want to do. Failure is not a bad thing, but we tend to think of it as such, and so that's how I would sum up what I'm saying. If you reinforce this rhetoric that you cannot learn something from failure, then yeah, you're going to be boosted up. But if you have the opinion that anything you do to learn about yourself is good, yeah, people are less. So they're like, whatever. It's kind of artsy fartsy and new age woo woo. We don't need that kind of crap. That's not people don't want that. So all right, so here's some comments, and then we should probably cut it. So Raven says, even if they were trying, we already said that. Raven says, if you notice, despite their best attempts, the conservatives can only get about 4 people who are detrans to go on their shows. And that's over the last 4 years or so. Yeah, it is fascinating. That's what I'm saying. I can't find detransitioners who will talk about this. Those who do are the ones who, you could see them on every station appear before Congress, and you go, wow. You have a full schedule. Look at this. You have a whole docket full of, And then I'll agree with Raven, who says she hopes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. And therefore?
We can support our detrans siblings. Absolutely. But yeah, the people who go and do that, they're doing it for a reason. They're doing it because they get paid to do it. They're doing it because they get sympathy from people. They get connection. They get understanding and warmth and whatnot. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. People get a lot of juice from that. Like
Yes.
I don't know
Yes.
why I use the word juice, but it helps to meet their human needs.
Yes. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Can I also, for what it's worth, that's part of what happened when I transitioned. Now I'm part of a community.
Mm.
Now I'm no longer some crabby old dude, sitting off just being crabby. Now I have a community of wonderful people like Morgan and you, Jasmine, and Raven and Zoe. It's helped meet my human need. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, same thing, I suppose. Trying to
But
make
yeah,
that positive. I don't know
everything
why.
comes back to that. Everything comes back to that, and
Yeah.
it's very, very reliant on the person's perception
Yeah. Yeah.
and how empowered they are as
Right.
well,
I'm
how
with you.
empowered they feel within themselves.
Definitely with you. So,
Mm.
all right.
I'll look right back at you, Morgan.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and start. Do you want to do the outro? You want me to do the outro?
You can do it. I
Okay.
can tell you've got it in front of you.
I do. Yeah, I just pulled it up. Did you notice? Because all of a sudden, like my face lightened
Yes,
up.
there was the white light. I
Yeah.
noticed that. Oh my
So
goodness.
so I love this because part of the outro says we could talk about this for hours, but let's end it there. Yeah, we already went an hour and 20 minutes. So people are like, yes, you can.
Including basically having the same conversation the other day for however long we were on the phone. I don't know.
Yeah, it was another hour and a half or something. But
Yeah,
if
something
you
like that.
if you have any requests for future topics, please let us know. Drop a comment below. There's also, I always mean to put this on the overlay here, Harmony Humanity Podcast at outlook.com. I got to stick that thing on there. But
It's
leave us a
also in the
comment.
description of the YouTube.
Is it okay? Good. Whew. So leave us a comment. If we use it, we might talk about it next week, and then we'll give you a shout out and say, hey, thanks so much for the idea. Thank you to everybody out there who joined in on this conversation. We all think you're pretty amazing for wanting to focus on our shared humanity. We're going to send you loads of love, like so. Right?
Like so, like that.
Yes. And then we will also put it in the wrong place. And we will see you next week. Thank you, Jasmine.
Oh, and we'll have Lino back. That's exciting. We will see
Yes.
you next week with Lino.
With Lino, yes. All right.
So
Bye,
we can go,
everybody.
yeah, woo!
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
And a
We
poem. We'll get
managed
a poem. So,
and a poem.
all right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Much love. Do, 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 do.